Hello, this is Daryl Ehrlich, and this is the Vietnam Voices series, a project of the Billings Gazette sponsored by Master Lube. It is September 29th, 2015, and I am here today with Bob Beebe.
Beebe.
And Bob is a veteran of the U.S. Army, and he has agreed to come in and talk with us about his Vietnam experience. I'm really excited to talk with Bob. Bob was part of Vietnam history that has been made into movies, and I'm excited to talk with him about that. I'm excited to talk with him because he's another Montanan who is over there and can share his view of Vietnam from a person who is there. Bob, thanks so much for being there. You are for here and for there. You joined the Army here in 1963, but I want to go back before 1963. Where were you and what were you doing before that?
I was Bozeman Hawks, played basketball there, graduated there. My dad was going to get married to his second wife, so I decided it's time that I leave home, so I joined the Army.
Had you had any? Did military run in your family? Had they been served? No. Why? Now, in 1963, did you know anything about Vietnam?
No, and I didn't. Not until probably March of '64.
Okay.
That's when I first heard about Vietnam because it was starting to hit the news.
Right. So in 1963, it's peacetime. We're obviously concerned about communism and Russians and all of that, but it's still peaceful, right? Is that you go and drink?
Not really. Was having major racial riots in this country at that time.
Okay.
And it was pretty bad all over the United States.
Okay. So you go into the Army. Talk about where you started your Army career, where you were inducted, did boot camp, and what you were trained to do.
Well, they inducted me in Butte, Montana. They put me on an airplane and shipped me to Fort Ord, California. I went through basic training in Fort Ord, California. From there, I went to artillery school at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And from there, I went home on Christmas leave. From there, I went on January of '64. I went to jump school at Fort Benning, Georgia. The U.S. government at that time was getting interested in the Vietnam War, and we started to experiment with helicopters, so they formed the 11th Air Assault Division. I was a member of that. We spent 3 months in North and South Carolina on maneuvers, experimenting with helicopters. And from that point, in August of 1965, they put us on 5 out of Charleston, South Carolina. They put us on the whole division on 5 U.S. troop ships. We went down through the Panama, went up to the San Diego, and we went across the Pacific Ocean and landed at Quin Yon Bay September 18th, 1965.
Wow. So you were trained. You were kind of being trained, it sounds like, specifically for Vietnam, for air assault, for something new in Vietnam, correct?
Yes, sir.
When did you said you learned in kind of January '64 about Vietnam? What did you think when you heard about this place, Vietnam, and what were you told about it?
I was watching on the news, every night at 5 o'clock news, they come on probably of a 30-minute news session. There's probably 10 minutes of it every night on the Vietnam War, of people getting shot and Americans getting more deeply involved in it. And President Johnson decided that he's going to send more troops over there. So they had planned us. We were the first fighting division to go over there strictly for combat duty. The people prior to us was over there mainly for advisors and support, but we were the first division to go over there to actually fight against the North Vietnamese. We had the Pathum, we had the regulars, we had the guerrillas, and the Viet Cong was fighting 4 different enemy over there.
Wow. And you go over, and you're being trained. This is some relatively new techniques with air assault and airborne.
Yes, that's what the purpose of the practice in the Carolinas was, to figure out if we could use them.
And so, how did that work? Give me an idea of what that entailed.
The CH-47s, double-bladed helicopters. I was in the artillery. We could actually put our 105 howitzers inside the bellies of these helicopters, and very few roads over there, so we went from one landing zone to another landing zone, and we could make a move in probably an hour's time from pickup point to drop-off point.
Okay, so these are the big Chinooks, and they would is that the CH-47 is a Chinook, and
Yeah.
and they would carry the heavy stuff. So,
Yep.
Okay, and so you were was this what you had wanted when you signed up for the Army, or thought you were going to do?
I wanted a future. I
Okay.
had no idea what I was getting into. So I was mainly after future and to better my education.
Okay.
And being a farm and ranch boy, it's just I want to do more than milk cows.
Well, anybody who's had to get up several times in an early morning and milk cows knows what work it is, and so
Yes, sir.
probably appreciate that. Let's talk about. So you go over there, and you guys go over as a unit, correct?
As a division.
So you
yes.
as a division. So you're not going over there normally like a lot of the vets as replacements. You're going over there fresh and as.
Oh, and I went over there. There was less than 100,000 people. They're Americans.
Okay.
And we just kept building up from there. But what a lot of people don't know, for every one soldier you got in the field fighting, you got 7 people in a rear echelon doing their finances, their personal records, all kinds of stuff. So if you've got 100,000 people in South Vietnam, you probably only got 8,000-9,000 fighting soldiers.
Right.
The rest is support.
And so you were trained in artillery and air
assault.
Air assault, right? So is that that's a lot of combat training then too? I
Yes,
imagine.
sir.
Every day. And was that an exciting thing? Was it scary? What was that? I mean, because this was not just these weren't practice. You were going to go to a place that actually you're going to put your skills to use.
Yes, sir.
And you knew it.
Yes, sir.
Was that a scary thing?
Well, when we got to Quin Yon Bay, they're so primitive. They didn't have ports out there, so we was about 2 miles offshore in this troop ship.
Okay.
And then we pulled in the evening time, so they're going to wait till the next morning to get on the assault boats and take us into shore. Well, we stood on the decks of that boat that first night in Vietnam, watching tracers going up and down the mountain. And I thought, oh Lord, what have I got myself into?
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah, yeah.
And I can't. When we next morning we got there, I can't repeat the exact words. The first words I heard when I got there, but it's something to the effect to get on that blankety blank truck over there. So.
Was it? What do you remember about seeing? What did Vietnam look like? What did it feel like? When you got there? What did it?
Part of it was jungle, and part of it, the area I was in, mostly was. If you go down around Big Timber, look at all the rolling hills and stuff. It was kind of like that.
Okay. So
a lot of red dirt. A lot of red dirt.
Okay. So from Quin Yon, you went where? Where?
NK, 46 miles inland. That's where our base camp was.
Okay. And Anke was a pretty tough area. Was it tough then when you got there?
The town, yes, it was, but with our presence right next to it, we had 15,000 troops there all of a sudden, just about overnight. We built a base camp. We hired local people to cut down jungle and shrubs and put up concertina wire and this kind of stuff. But the village itself wasn't bad, but once we got situated and started going on search and destroy missions, then things got a little scary.
Yeah. So you set up. You've got to basically build your own quarters.
Yes, sir.
Because you're establishing.
Just lived in pup tents for the first 3 months.
Wow. What were you taking fire during then? Were people firing at you, or were they?
In the base camp, we didn't. We never. Our base camp when I was there, we didn't actually get assaulted in the camp.
Okay. We
had a tough perimeter every night, but we had miles and miles and miles of concertina wire up.
Okay.
Our base camp was probably a square mile. That's how big it was.
Okay. And so you get the base camp set up, and then you start operations, right?
That's.
So what were you doing? What was an operation like? What's a typical day in the life like for you?
Well, my job was I was on artillery. I was a buck sergeant. But every time the infantry go out on maneuvers or search and destroy missions, it was my job to go with the infantry, and when we become under fire, I carried a radio, and I called in airstrikes and artillery fire.
Was that nerve-wracking? I mean, here you're in the artillery, and you're really kind of more in the infantry because you're going out with them.
Well, yeah, it was, because if infantry comes under fire, The first three people they look for: number one, person with a crew-served weapon with a machine gun. Number two would be a man with a radio on his back, which I had. And number three would be an officer or person in command. That were the three priorities of the enemy to take out first.
And the enemy up there, you're in the
Central
Highlands. You're fighting NVA and Viet Cong. Are they both there?
NVA, they're from the north.
Yep.
They're semi-trained. Then you got the PATH, and there's the super hard chargers. Then you got the Viet Cong, which is the radicals down in South Vietnam.
Yeah. Were you fighting all of them, or mostly?
Mostly the North Vietnamese.
Okay. So what did you? So when you go out, when you were going out on these missions, were they ambush? Were they kind of search and destroy? What were
when
they?
I first started out in Pleiku, mainly sniper fire. What we got. I mean, one sniper can hold a whole company down for 2 or 3 hours. You know.
Right.
But then around the 1st November, things started getting real tough on us. We started meeting more and more resistance because we was halfway between the Pacific Ocean and the Cambodian border, where NK was at. And being the first American there, the North Vietnamese pretty much had control of the center part of South Vietnam.
Right. So they didn't want to give it up.
No. So intelligence went in there and found out where the bulk of them was on Chu Pong Mountain, and they figured there were close to 2,000 North Vietnamese regulars there, and they sent us in to see if we couldn't take over. Our first assault was all done by Huey helicopters, where you have 5 soldiers at a time. So we sent in 16 helicopters with 5 in each one of them. And the minute we get on ground there, we find this young soldier, North Vietnamese soldier. We actually captured him. And come to find out, we had landed right in the middle of their base camp. And there was 1,800 North Vietnamese soldiers had us surrounded probably within the first 2 hours.
Wow, how'd you get out of that one?
72 hours later, 307 of my friends dead. Probably a total after the 72 hours, because we kept bringing in some more troops and medevacing the wounded out and bringing more troops in. I would say there were close to 600 wounded in the 72-hour battle.
Wow.
One of the bloodiest battles of the Vietnam War, and the first battle. The North Vietnamese was interested how the Americans were going to fight. And we say we won that battle, and they say they won that battle, so it was kind of a draw. But they had over 1,000 dead, and the heat, not the body heat, but the air heat was so bad that after 5 or 6 hours, the stink from all these dead bodies. I mean, they're just dead bodies on top of dead bodies laying all over the place, which is like something you never want to smell in your life.
Yeah, because it's hot and sticky, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the Battle of Ia Drang. Was that the
Ia Drang, Ia Drang Valley.
So did you know when you were going in there that it was going to be, were you looking to land right in the middle of a base camp?
No.
Or were you looking for that kind of fight?
There were 3 different LZs that they were looking at. And LZ X-ray was the biggest one. It was probably the size of a football field.
Okay.
Because we needed to figure out how many helicopters we could get in there at one time.
Okay. And you got 16 in there, and then you started taking, they had 80 men surrounded by about 1,800.
Yep.
Wow. And we still fought our way.
Fought our way all in.
Wow. That is, so you knew there was going to be you're looking for the enemy, but you weren't looking for necessarily that big.
Well, we wanted to at least get our feet on the ground before we got stompled on.
Yeah.
You know, and we basically went, it's hard to believe and understand and how do people do it, and people are going to say that can't be done, but we basically stayed awake for 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, you might catnap for 2 seconds or something. But
right. What did so did you go in on the first wave, or were you how did you get
I was the second wave.
Okay. So by the time you got there, did you know that things were pretty hot and heavy there?
You could see it because airstrikes were already going on. Artillery from There were two batteries, A battery and B battery, and I was in B battery. The A battery RTO went in the first wave. I'm in B battery. I went in on the second wave. But artillery fire and napalm was already coming into support of our troops.
Right.
You could see that from 2 or 3 miles away with all the smoke and stuff coming up in the air.
So when you're coming into that, what were you thinking as you're landing there? Because you know things are going boom and there's smoke everywhere. Is that?
I had tears in my eyes.
Yeah. And so you jump out.
Literally crying.
Right. Were other guys?
Yeah.
So how hard is it to get out of the helicopter with it?
It never touched the ground. It was probably 6 feet out, and we just jumped.
Okay. So you jumped, and then were you under fire immediately? I mean, because I imagine
we was under fire before we even landed.
Okay.
On the second wave.
So where do you do when you hit the ground? I don't think many people have an understanding of what that's like. I know I certainly don't. When you jump out and you're under fire, what do you do next?
Go to your belly instantly.
Okay.
And you wait for a command from a senior officer, which happened to be Colonel Hal Moore.
Okay.
And he sent us over to support the left flank.
Okay. And so then it's 3 days of fighting.
Basically, yep.
What do you remember about the fight? What does it look like? Where are you fighting? I mean, describe the scene for me.
I don't know if you know what an elimination round is. The scary part, I think, was at nighttime.
Okay.
Because artillery was always, an elimination round is a great big light. It goes up in the air and explodes, and it comes down by a parachute. So it's sitting up there swinging like this. And it probably, once one goes off, it probably takes, I'd say 15, 20 minutes before it burns out and hits the ground. But there was always 5 or 6 of them. It's kind of like a football field at nighttime, everything,
Okay.
with all the lights shining in there.
Right.
And to watch the Air Force come in with jets, the enemy's out in front of you, and you can actually see the jets coming in. You can actually see them drop the bombs way behind you, 500,000-pound bombs, and watch them tumble in the air like that.
Right.
And then you think, God, I hope that thing goes over me, you know.
Right. It's pretty scary. That's got to be terrifying. And then you're watching it, and I imagine at night when it's lit up, it's kind of a little bit like backlighting. It's probably bright, and you see a lot of in the perimeter shadows, right?
Mm-hmm.
That must be just an eerie, spooky.
Well, and down elimination round, with that parachute come down, they get to swinging like this. So the shadows of the trees and down the ground get moving like that. So you didn't know if it was a tree moving, you didn't know if it was Charlie Old Chong moving on you, and it's just
right.
kind of different, you know.
Is it? And are you? How does it work with? Because my first instinct would be to shoot a lot, but yet you don't want to give up your position, and you don't know when you're going to get ammo resupply, right?
We wasn't worried about our position.
Okay. Were you worried about resupply for ammo? Were you?
Yes. The basic load, we had 20-round clips, but we didn't put more than 18 in a clip because for some unknown reason on the first M16s that come out, that 19th round would jam every shit in time.
Yeah.
So we put 18 rounds in a clip. But you know, you had 10 to 15. You'd leave a box of sea rations at the base camp just to take 2 extra clips of ammunition with you.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you do. So but yeah, because most of us had our M16s on automatic fire.
Right. And were they doing any during those 3 days? Could they do any resupply to you?
It was round the clock.
Okay.
Round the clock. They'd bring in a load of ammo in, and we pick up KIAs or the wounded in action, and put them on a helicopter, and they take off.
What was so you're in the field, are you both fighting and calling things in? Is that what you?
That was my main job, is to talk to the Air Force and talk to the artillery.
Is it hard to talk to the artillery and the Air Force when you're seeing death, destruction, and being shot at everywhere?
Very.
Okay.
Very.
Yeah. Is the radio?
Thinking about am I next, or
right?
You know.
What are you? And I imagine there's a lot of radio traffic when it's hot and heavy, isn't it? You're just calling in strikes, right? Is it right out?
They
where
tell
you
them
can
to just fire. You're always first one. You always around the smoke, and they tell you about where the enemy or your shell's going to land. Then you just add 50 yards to that.
Okay. So you were seeing that. Was the artillery doing good? I mean, were we taking care of business?
There's 6 guns to a battery,
Okay.
and each gun was putting off 3 rounds a minute. So that's just, and then our 2 batteries, A battery and B battery. They were both in the same LZ, but they had their operator, and I had my operator, and I was talking to the jets overhead.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it must just be deafeningly loud too. If you've got bombs going off, guns going off, people yelling, is it loud? Is it
You can be 4 foot from one another, and you literally got to scream at the top of your lungs to hear what they're saying.
Right. Right. So how far are you, when you're calling in and stuff, how far are you from someone else in that situation?
Sometimes right on top of one another. There's a lot of anthills out there. And when I'm talking anthills, I'm not talking about just little ones. These things are 6, 8, 10 feet tall.
Okay.
That was a lot of our cover. That was the whole LZ, like I said, it was kind of shaped like an ice cream cone, not without the ice cream, like a piece of pie or something. But it was about the size of a football field.
Wow. What was the and are you close to the officer to get firepower?
Colonel Hal Moore was right in the middle.
Okay.
And Sergeant Major Plumley.
Okay. What did you when you were over there and you were fighting for 3 days? How did you stay awake? Is it hard staying awake for 3 days?
I didn't think so.
Right.
I didn't think so. It's tough. I mean, we were totally exhausted when it was all over with.
Right. And how do you deal with when you see someone wounded or get hit and killed? How do you deal with that and do your job?
That's a tough question to answer. I mean, you just respond. I mean, you don't think about that kind of stuff. You just automatically respond.
Okay.
You do what you help to help your fellow man right there. But also, you got to protect the interests of everybody else around you.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a hard thing to do, I imagine. And you have to keep low, right?
Yeah. I was kissing the ground a whole bunch of times.
Yeah, I imagine. So, what did you think of how the NVA were they tough fighters? Was it because these are regular Army guys.
I can't say all of them were. They were a lot of them on opium, about half drugged up half the time, and they'd rather die than get captured.
Okay, so they were there to the battle to the death.
Yeah, they're pretty tough.
Yeah.
Pretty tough.
So in those 3 days, how much do you move, or do you stay in the same place for 3 days?
It's kind of back and forth, assault here or assault over there. The Colonel Moore kept moving people around from one spot to the other. He was a smart man. He had to be smart to put us through not put us through, but to do what he did while we was there to save his life so everybody could. And I got a lot of respect for that man.
Yeah. At the end of 3 days, what happens? Did we evacuate? Did we retreat? Did they retreat? What happened?
They kind of retreated on back into Cambodia. We were only about 5 or 6 miles from the Cambodia line. We weren't allowed to go in there. Once probably about noon of the 3rd day, we discovered they were gone.
Okay.
But they were on the retreat. We started heading, we're 6 miles from the artillery batteries. And we started along a single line, started going back to them, receiving, getting in minor scrimmages back and forth because they were retreating the same damn way and we were trying to get back to artillery batteries.
Okay.
That's what we were trying to do. So it was probably another 24 hours of fighting after that.
Was it chaos?
Yeah, because you was lost half the time. Some people were out there actually about beyond our perimeter by themselves all night long, And you don't dare crawl in, because we would think that was the enemy crawling at us, and you get shot by them. There was a lot of our own people got killed by our own people.
Yeah, a lot of so-called friendly fire.
Yeah.
Was it and when it was all said and done, we had lost more than 300 men, right? Is it
307 KIAs.
Yeah.
and over 600 wounded.
How do you? So almost 1,000 guys either wounded or killed when you add them up. How long did that take to even get that many? Imagine that takes a while just to get the dead and the wounded out of there, right?
It was kind of a continuous operation between the fight and loading the KIAs and the MIAs.
Okay. And that just keeps on going on, and you keep on doing your job while that happens, correct? And
Under fire the whole time. I mean, the North Vietnamese came down from the north. They carried everything they had, their 82 mortars and everything. But they were well equipped, and they were very, very determined. They wanted to know how the Americans fought, and for future reference and what to do on them.
Mm-hmm. Were you proud of how you fought in that particular?
Very proud.
Yep.
Very proud of everybody I was with.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you somebody back here you think might be, well, he's a candy ass.
Right.
But get over there, and he's probably one of the biggest heroes you ever want to get. Nobody had no idea the response they're going to do it until it actually happens to you.
Yeah. Were you surprised about your response?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one Purple Heart, one's Presidential Citation. I got 2 Bronze Stars for heroic actions and combat duty.
Wow. And you're just a farm kid from Bozeman or from Gallatin County.
Well, I don't know if anybody heard. I went to high school in Gallatin County,
okay.
But I was born and raised in Wilsall, if you know where that is.
Yep.
Born and raised on a ranch at Wilsall.
Okay. So after that, how long had you when the Ia Drang happened like that? How long after that? How long had you been in country when that battle took place?
That started on November 15th, and we got there September 18th. So what, about 6 weeks?
Yeah, if that. Well, that must have been Iowa. Was that the first firefight action that you'd seen?
Well, had a little sniper fire prior to that, but that's the first major battle I was ever in, and the worst one I was ever in while I was over there.
Yeah, can you pick up your copy just to show it to the camera of the book? This is the We Were Soldiers Once and Young. This is the story of the Ia Drang, the battle. And so let's talk a little bit about that. When you heard that was coming out in a movie or saw it, what did you think?
I wanted to go see it, but I didn't want to go see it.
Yeah. Did you end up going and seeing it?
Yes, I did.
Was it?
I waited, though, till the home movie came out, and I watched it that way. I didn't go to the movie theater to watch it.
Yeah. Was it? What did you think of the film?
It's probably 95% true.
Okay. And was it hard watching that movie again?
Parts of it was, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When you see a book or a movie about Vietnam, are you interested in it or not?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What other movies or film, TV, music, whatever, are there songs or movies or TV or book that you think do a good job with capturing what you saw or what you felt in Vietnam?
Hamburger Hill.
Okay.
That's another true story.
Mm-hmm.
That happened in 1968.
Right.
Hill on the Tet Fence. That's where I wasn't there, but that's where we dropped thousands and thousands and thousands. A hill that was full of nothing but vegetation, with nothing but mud when they got through bombing it. And yet the Fort North, they have underground tunnels there that go for miles and miles, and hospitals underground. You know, and once the shelling stops, they just come out of just like an ant. They just come running out of the ground. You know, because that war had been going on. The French were there before we were.
Yep.
That war had been going on a long, long, long time.
We got into the middle of it.
Yeah.
But yeah. When you so let's talk about after 3 days, the NVA pulls back, and you guys have to go back. What's the ride back like, and are you exhausted? What's just tell me kind of what's going through your mind
Totally exhausted. We get back to base camp. We got to take a bath in our steel pots. You know, they got these tank heaters and these big old garbage cans of hot water. You fill up them heaters and stick them in there. You got hot water, but everybody is so black that you're from dirt and filth that you know your clothes are about ready to fall off. You're so muddy and nasty.
Yeah.
But 36 hours later, we're right back out in the field again.
Wow. Wow. So was it hard going back out in the field after something like that?
No, because some of our buddies were in trouble. They were being overrun, so we was available, and we went to help them.
Okay. And you go back out, and do you encounter the same kind of fire when you go back out?
Not as bad this time.
Okay.
Once reinforcements got there, it maybe lasted 2 hours, and they started retreating again.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're just there 6-7 weeks, and you're thinking you've already seen a huge battle. You're getting sniper fire. You're going out here and getting some firefight. This is a pretty dangerous place.
Yes, sir.
How do you just keep on going day in, day out in a place where you're always getting shot at?
You don't have much choice. You really, I mean, it was not a declared war, so they couldn't get you for desertion.
Right.
It's a conflict. But you know, you got a friendship over there that's there's a lot of racial stuff going on back here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that problem over there. I don't care if he was black, Chinese, green, orange, blue. We didn't have that problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of my best friends were black people.
Yeah.
You know.
Was it? So then, what else on an average? Then do you just go out and are you on support missions? Are you on ambushes? Are you on patrols? What do you do?
Search and destroy.
Okay.
Search.
So you were looking for them, and
Yeah,
and
we was after them.
you were. Is it you looking for trouble, so to speak?
Yes, sir.
How'd you find him?
Intelligence, that's what's way above my caliber. You know, but they got surveillance airplanes and helicopters and this kind of stuff that kind of keeps track of that kind of stuff.
Right. Once you established a base camp, is that did you at least would you come in or would you stay out in the field for several days?
Probably 2 to 3 weeks at a time.
Wow. So that's jungle living
When I was
on.
in base camp, we wasn't there that long anyway.
Right. When you were out in the jungle for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, you're living off of sea rats?
Yep. Sea rations dated for World War II.
Were they just as horrible as I've heard?
I didn't like the ham and lima beans. The can is probably as big as a tomato soup can.
Okay.
And you take your P38 and you want the can to be about a ½ inch of grease on top of it. And you have no way to heat it up to melt that grease. So
Wow.
it was kind of hectic eating sea rations.
Yeah, yeah. And at nighttime, you're camping out, and what kind of terrain are you camping in?
One night I remember during the monsoon season, they get 110 inches of rain over there a year, and probably 80 of that comes in a 3-month period. But during the monsoon season, we pulled into an abandoned rice paddy one night, set up our perimeter, and the next morning we're sleeping in 18 inches of water. So that's, you know, and sometimes it was on a Nova Hill or sometimes down in the valley, but I'll never forget that night in the rice paddy.
That sounds miserable, too. Yeah. Did you, when you're over there, is it warm, or does it cool down at night, or what?
Nighttime it cooled down,
Okay,
you know.
okay.
I went 3 days one time without a dry pair of socks on my feet.
That doesn't sound very comfortable.
No.
Yeah. What is over there? What do you miss about home? When you're over there, what did you find yourself missing?
I miss my dad.
Yeah.
I really did, you know.
Yeah. What was the obviously in the day before cell phones and FaceTime and Skype and all those things that are available today, there was only letter writing, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you do a lot of writing back to him?
Maybe six letters the whole year I was over there.
Yeah. And so when you're in camp, how many guys are along with you usually when you're out on those patrols, the search and destroy?
Usually no less than the squad. If a platoon went out, it's basically how you went out, and platoon size about 150 people. But I think the most memorable moments I have in Vietnam, there's a big deal going on back here in the States. Somehow the first air cav had sent names and addresses to all over the United States, and everybody's getting letters from people over there, mainly young ladies. and that's what kept everybody's spirit up.
It wasn't, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so the first air cab would, what part of your job, kind of on a daily basis, was part of that airborne? Was it being slipped into places, or how does that work when you're with the air cab?
Or what do you mean?
Are you constantly going out to places from wherever base is, or are you getting flown into? Do you have to drop into these to wherever?
Oh, once we left, we never stayed in one position more than 3 days. Once
Okay.
we was out in the field, you know.
Okay.
But being with the infantry was always on the move. But our artillery, about every 3 days, moved to a different place to be within closer, you know, because the 105 Howitzer shell only travels for 7 miles.
Okay.
So they had to be within 7 miles of it, and about every 3 days they moved. But the infantry, I mean, we're always on the go.
Yeah. Was it exciting, or what was an average day like?
Well, some days if you didn't come on a village or nothing, you know, a village is over. It's not like what you think over here, but a village over there, a lot of grass huts, dirt floors, this kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And the mountain yards, they're very primitive type people. Oh boy, can't shut it off.
That's okay. That's okay.
But the mountain yard people, the men run around barefooted, wearing nothing but loincloths. The women wore skirts from the waist down and they're naked from the waist up. They were not affiliated. They tried to stay away from North and South War. They tried to stay completely out of the war. But if we come to these other villages controlled by the Vietnamese, we pretty much ransacked them, you know, looking for ammunition, food supplies, this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Was when you were over there, do you remember or did you know much about what was going on in the States? Now, when you were over there, there wasn't a lot of protesting, and the sentiment had not started to build.
It was starting to. We got a newspaper over there called Stars and Stripes, so it kind of kept us informed what was going on. But a lot of it was just about inland fighting going on. You know,
Yeah.
We'd get some news about what was going on in the United States over here.
Did you when you talked about, you know, the future with your fellow soldiers? What did you guys talk about? Was there any talk about what you're going to do when you get home, or what when you get out?
Oh, we always counted the days, you know.
Okay.
90 days in a wake up, or 85 days in a wake up, or get some new guy that just come in and just harass the hell out of him, you know.
So when you got short on your time, was that a good thing? Were you looking forward to that?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the
I mean, I hadn't heard a radio, hadn't seen a TV, hadn't talked to what we call a round eye, because everybody had the Vietnamese, you know. Hadn't talked to one of them, hadn't seen Montana. I mean, I missed the hell out of Montana.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's, I don't know how accurate I can be. I would say that I'm pretty close to one of the very first Montanans that ever went to the Vietnam War.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the when you're over there, does anything remind you of home, or is it completely different?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
Absolutely nothing.
Okay. What were there good times over there?
Yeah. While we was over there, everybody got a three-day inland R&R or 5-day outland R&R. I got to go to Vung Tau for my inland, and I got to go to Hong Kong on my outland. And the Army called it R&R for rest and recuperation, but we nicknamed it I&I for intercourse and intoxication. Because that's about what it boiled down to.
Right, right. Well, and was it hard coming back from either I&I or R&R after? I mean, is it hard going back to work after that?
It was good to be back in base camp,
Okay.
because that's where you went back to.
Yeah. Did you feel like over there when you got short, did it make you more nervous about going out in the field?
You know, I don't think I really thought about that.
Okay. What's the was the battle? Was that the most intense experience that you'd had, or were there others that were even?
That was the most intense for the simple reason. If I asked you what broken arrow means, would you have any idea?
No.
Colonel Halmar gave that order out, broken arrow, over the radio.
Okay.
And that's to every Navy ship, every airplane that's in the air or on the ground that were fixing to be overrun.
Okay.
I'll never forget that.
And you're on the radio now. Not most people didn't hear it, but you did.
Yep.
What did you think then?
I was very scared.
Yeah.
Very, very scared.
When did he give that order? At what point in that 3 days did he give
The
that?
third night.
Okay.
The third night. And I never saw so many airplanes in my life coming in, bombing.
Wow.
It just one plane right after the other, every shape, color, shape, and size. I mean, we were outnumbered something fierce.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Now you got a Purple Heart. How did that happen?
I took a bullet. I got a bullet in the left leg and a shrapnel in the right leg. I got a bullet, and the left leg got shrapnel in my knee.
When did that happen?
On November 18th, 1965.
Okay. Was that during the Ia Drang, or is that?
Yep.
And so you're injured. How did you? How did you get out of there? And how long did it take to get out of there? To
Well,
get medical?
both. I went to a field hospital, which is basically attended play coup, and there's where I stayed. My wounds weren't bad enough to get a stateside wound or nothing like that. I just took one bullet here and shrapnel my leg over there. So mainly just clean them up and bandage them up and
send you on your way.
Yep.
How long between were you from November 18th? How many days passed before you're back out on the field?
out back to the field the first of December.
Wow. And do you remember what kind of time had passed from when you got shot and hit with the shrapnel? How long did it take to get back to medical help?
Probably 3 hours.
That's got to be a scary 3 hours. Were you worried about the wounds, or what were you thinking?
Well, the shrapnel was hot, so it kind of burned the blood vessels, so I wasn't really bleeding in the left leg. But we put kind of a pressure bandage on my right leg. We put the cellophane from a cigarette, well, in your sea ration, you get this cellophane wrapper.
Yep.
And we put that on my leg, and then we tied it up with a T-shirt.
Wow, that is as primitive as you get for trying to stop, but it worked.
It worked.
I imagine that has to be pretty painful for 3 hours.
It was kind of numb when it first hit me.
Okay.
You know, and medic gave me morphine in my leg, so that helped.
Right. Did you even know at first you were hit, or does it
I knew
register?
instantly I was hit.
Okay.
I was trying to go from one ant hill to the other and didn't quite make it.
It's tough. Sorry to hear that. I really am. Was it when you look back at that? That's got to be incredibly scary. How do you go back out on December 1st again? Because I would think, man, I've been hit and I've got all these wounds, and now I'm going right back.
I felt it was something I had to do, and I couldn't let my buddies down.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the friendship there's something that you can take two best friends over here. That don't even compare to what you got over there, because your life actually depends upon you,
Right.
one person next to you, and this person, that person.
Yeah.
You're very, very, very close.
Yeah. Yeah. Does when you go out on are most of your missions at night, or are they day, or what?
They usually start out at daylight or just a little bit before daylight.
Okay. And when you're are you always? Did you ever get a hot meal? Or do you ever get a hot shower or anything like that, or was it 1 year of jungle
in base
living?
camp, we built us a big kind of A-frame. We had 4 55-gallon drums up on top of it, and we built some little nozzles under there. We'd fill them up with water and put them hot tank heaters in there, and We got a hot shower. That one was in base camp, but out in the field, you just took what they call a horse bath out of your steel pot, you know.
Right, right. Did you? Let's talk about leaving Vietnam for you. When did that happen, and where'd you go, and what were your last few days like in Nam?
July 29th, 1966. I was out in the field, and the CO come to me and says, if you want to go home, get on that helicopter. Because I knew I was coming up. My 3-year hitch was just about up anyway.
Okay.
So I jumped on the helicopter, went back to Camp Radcliffe, and 2 days later, I was on a C-141 heading back to Travis Air Force Base in California.
Okay, what did you? Let's talk about landing in California. What was that like, and what was your experience there?
Well, I got back there. I got discharged, and I and 2 of my friends that come back with me went from the Presidio of San Francisco. We went down to the bus station to get on a bus to go home, and we're standing there waiting for a bus to come in. Some lady come up and started hollering, screaming at us, and then spit on all 3 of us.
Wow, that's too bad. I bet that must have been pretty difficult.
Yeah, I never had a female in my life, but I sure felt like it.
Right, right. Well, and you had seen some terrible things. You had been wounded yourself, and that was
That was the frosting on the cake.
That was a frosting on the cake. So was it hard getting back to regular life?
Yeah, in fact, I work a part-time job now.
Okay.
And I got the nickname of Jumpy out there because, I mean, it's a loud noise. I'm still Jumpy today.
Okay.
50 years after the fact.
Yeah, yeah. What ways was Vietnam a good experience for you?
I'd do it again.
Would you? Why?
Communism.
Okay.
It's got to stop someplace.
Yeah.
You know. And along with them North Vietnamese soldiers, there were a lot of Chinese soldiers in there.
Right.
You know, they were kind of the North Vietnamese advisors, like we were the South Vietnam advisors.
Right. Yeah. Was it so? What did you do when you got back? How was life adjusting?
I went back to the ranch, and couldn't really get along with my new stepmom.
Okay.
So I just moved out.
Okay.
That was 3 days after I got there. Well, it was kind of a long story, because when I got back, I wanted to go see some of my cousins. Mm-hmm. So I would leave early in the morning and get back late at night, leave early in the morning, get back late at night. And after about 3 days, she decided I shouldn't live there no more. So
okay.
I just took off.
Okay, and where did life take you?
Well, I got into the logging industry for a while, drove a log truck for a number of years. Then I bought a couple of trucks and was in business for myself, trucking over the road. And mm-hmm. Then I retired here about 5 years ago, and I went down to Sage Truck Driving School and got me a part-time job working down there. And
okay. Did you did you find it hard readjusting to normal life besides Jumpy? I mean, the name Jumpy. Were there other things that was hard, or did you just kind of go on?
Well, I think one of the hardest things is I've had a number of people today say, well, all you Vietnam vets was on drugs. When I was over there, we didn't hear, nobody I knew used drugs. Mm-hmm. But now I heard back in the 70s that the soldiers started using drugs, but the 60s, we didn't have no druggies over there.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that pisses me off.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think was it hard to? Did you have the same friends? Was it easy to reconnect with people, or did you have to find a whole new group of friends?
Whole new group of friends.
Okay, okay. What was looking back on Vietnam today? Now that there's been 50 years since you've been over there. What do you think of Vietnam now? How do you view it now?
I understand they've really progressed and become more modern. They're not really a dictatorship like everybody thought they was going to be, but South Vietnam is really, to my knowledge, has really come along. I'd like to go back over there and just see what it looks like today.
Yeah, yeah. So you haven't been back, but you would like to be.
But I'd like to.
Yeah. What about the? What is your happiest memory from Vietnam?
The friendship, I think. With friends,
Okay.
it'll always be friends.
Yeah. So you've been able to reconnect with them and stay in touch with them.
Yes,
Right.
I have.
Do you when people hear you're a Vietnam vet, what's the most common kind of reaction that you get?
I got a hat at the house. It's got a Purple Heart on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in Walmart the other day. Some lady I didn't even know on the West End, or some lady I didn't even know, come up, kissed me on the cheek, hugged me, and said thank you, and just turned around and walked off.
That's not a bad day.
I took a second for it to dawn on what was going on there. You know?
Right. Right. Do you think much about those medals? Do you think much about Vietnam daily?
They won't get me a cup of coffee, but yeah, I don't think there's a day go by that something doesn't enter my mind about it, you know.
Yeah.
Especially if I see another veteran.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got is it a bond that you guys have?
Yeah.
What are the sights and smells? Are there still things you mentioned loud sounds that can kind of almost instantly transport you back to there?
Every day.
Is there? What okay. Are there things in particular besides the loud noise that do it?
Maybe gunpowder.
Okay.
If I go to a rifle range or something.
Smelling that. Yeah. Was it just hot and sticky over there, so a lot different climate than Montana too?
It's about the same as Montana, except for the monsoon season. I mean, it just don't quit raining.
Yeah. When it's raining like that, do you stay in? What do you do? What or do you have
Stay
to?
basically under your poncho.
Wow. Which does that poncho work with that much water?
Well, a poncho just like a cape over you, and it comes down about halfway between your ankle and your knee. So, you know, I went 3 days without a pair of dry socks on one time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just miserable. What's the one of the reasons we're doing this is so that when people look back, they can hear about Vietnam from someone who was there. What do you hope they don't forget?
The American lives that were lost there.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see similarities with what's going on today? I mean, I know a lot of the vets here have said I worry about the war we're in now because we're seeing some of the same things happen.
Because they're making the same mistakes. When I first got over there, if we got fired upon, we had to ask permission from Rear Echelon to fire back. And they're doing the same thing over there in Iraq and Iran right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
If somebody's shooting me, I shouldn't have to wait for some general to say, well, go ahead and shoot back. Might take 2 hours for crying out loud.
Yeah.
If I get shot at now, I'm going to return fire. I ain't going to wait for somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What was it hard for you to leave Vietnam?
Leave my friends.
Okay.
I mean, them were my true friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it odd being back in the U.S.?
Yeah, because the first song I heard when I got back here was We All Live in Submarine, the Yellow Submarine by the Beatles. And I thought, boy, I hope the whole world hasn't changed to this.
Yeah. A lot had changed since you had left.
Yeah, it had.
Yeah. That must have been quite an adjustment.
It's completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things that's hard to do is you take these really intense experiences and you condense them down into just this interview. What else have I missed? I'm sure I've missed a lot, but what have I missed that is important to capture about your story?
I think pretty much you've covered everything that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for serving and doing what you did. And thank you for your valor. I mean, people who have Purple Hearts and Bronze Stars, that's a special kind of person, so I appreciate that too. And finally, thank you for sharing your story and your perspective. It's an amazing thing to sit here with a person who's kind of witnessed history and been a part of it, so thank you. I appreciate
You're welcome.
that, Bob. This has been Daryl Ehrlich with Bob Beebe for Vietnam Voices.